Okay, so we're going to share a little project I'm bringing back to life. I think I worked on this a couple years ago, and it's called Statzilla. And the whole idea is to build a monitoring system for, millions, billions of statistics that's very efficient, very easy to dashboard, very easy to know what anomalous activities, anomalous actions are going on and all that. And I'm working a job right now, which I'm going to be doing some stuff in Grafana. They're using Grafana Loki, Grafana Mirror. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. And I'm looking at like how to build dashboards and things like that. I'm not really a big fan of dashboards. I think that what I'm going to show you here is probably a better way of looking at information. I'm going to kind of show you what I kind of envision being able to do someday when I throw a front end on this. So what we're looking at is the stat work table. And what you get is you get one record in this table, say every day or every hour, or it could be every month. And it just updates that one record. And the data as it's updated can be fed out to a detail table if you really need that. But it allows you to kind of, in the future, to select what data do you keep the detail on. So maybe we only want to keep data on anomalous we want to keep detailed activity on anomalous records. Everything that's normal, we just discard the detail and keep the summary, which in this case would be an hourly summary. So that eliminates that information. Also, this hourly record is what we archive every hour. When a new hour rolls over, we take this aggregated record, which has all of the information within an hour to whatever level of detail we have that's been kind of aggregated with enough information that we can kind of tell what's going on in that hour, and we archive that. And so then we can use that for, we can store a lot of data in our archive and do that for all kinds of trend analysis and stuff. But let's imagine, right now I think I've got maybe a couple thousand records here. Let's imagine it's a lot more than that. Right now I'm passing in these identifiers as part of the name. I'm going to do some work with that where those get split out. The record ID ultimately becomes kind of the statistic name and what we would call static identifiers. These are identifiers that don't change. Of course, users may want to pass in other identifiers that do change, other meta, and so we would maybe do that in another field and allow that to happen. This is all going to have, I envision a RESTful interface that you can just send data to it, and it can push, or you can have agents pull data. Ideally, it would do things like just look at your CloudWatch and pull the data for you. So here's our received value. These are counters in Oracle. This is all the sysstat data that I'm using for testing. So this is the counter. You get the delta between the current value and the last value, store that there. We have the number of seconds elapsed. Then we have our rate per second. We always calculate rate per second regardless. And then we can define all the data that's in here is in a bucket. And that bucket you can define the calculation type. So this is rate per minute. And so here we get a conversion to our calc value, which is our rate per minute. You can do a delta, you can do no calc, or you can do various rates. And that gives you your calc value. Then you have the average value, which is just in this case, since this is each record represents an hour or a slice of an hour. It may only represent 5 minutes, but as it goes throughout the hour, it's representing more and more of the hour. You have your average value. So it's just by looking at this, you can immediately give some idea of what the average has been for the hour. And we can see there have been 10 calcs. So I've got 10 pieces of data in that average. And then this gives us a percentage of the average value reference. So this record is always being compared to the average value. And as we get more data, we can get more and more accurate. We can actually define in the bucket what we want to look at. Do we want to look at all of the data to determine what an average is? Do we want to look at data on this day of the week? Or do we want to look at data on this day of the week and this hour of the day historically? And as you get enough data, it kind of automatically adjusts, unless you've told it, I want to use all data or I just want to use day of week. But it kind of automatically adjusts down to that higher level of granularity so that we're comparing day of week and hour of day to itself historically to kind of figure out what is normal. And then, so this is giving us an idea of what is this, how are we now in relation to that average, historic average. Number of calculations, the time the stat came in, was updated, created. When was the last non-zero value? So this stores when was the last non-zero value, and there's a setting in the bucket that you can say, if this thing is just throwing zero values, which a lot of data sets do, large data sets, I really don't care about it. And if it doesn't throw zero value, after 4 hours, say, of throwing zero values, stop archiving this. I just don't care about it. You're going to keep updating it, but we're not going to use up any space until it starts throwing some values again, and then it kind of turns on until that window. And that window could be whatever you want it in terms of number of hours. So I think that's pretty cool. These are our percentiles, and it is looking at the detailed data for this. So like you can say, use 24 hours worth of detailed data to kind of determine what percentiles the values are in, and then each time it updates, it adds a count of what percentile it is ending up in. Now, these numbers are fairly new, so there's not a lot of range, and so you're kind of getting 0 or 100. But as there gets to be a lot of historical data, things will smooth out here and should be kind of in the middle. But this gives you some kind of ability to look and say, what bucket are these values in? And this does the same kind of thing, but with averages. So is it, below 10% of average, 20% of average, and it kind of steps up. And then these are kind of arbitrary, but I just double up until we get up to like, your 2000% of average, and then you're just way over. And so again, you have an easy way to see, of the sample set for the hour, where are those numbers coming out? And so you have two kind of ways of looking at this. And this is looking, this average data again is based on these records that you're looking at here as they're archived at different levels of granularity. And so here is the actual average that it's pulled. And right now, this data is new, so it doesn't really have much to go on. So it says no, but eventually it'll look at all of the archive data, then it'll look at data for the day of week, and when it has enough data to go off of the hour of day on day of week, it'll start to use that, and that's where these numbers will get more and more accurate for most data sets. It's also giving you an idea of how many records are in the sample count. Since right now it's brand new data, I don't think it was archived when I ran this last query. It's just using itself basically. So that is a lot of information. And if you were to try to dashboard just one record, all of this kind of information, it would be kind of hard to dashboard. It isn't really that hard to look at here. Of course, we wouldn't be just looking at any old data. We would write some queries that would tell us what is way out in terms of what's out of normal average-wise, and sort by that. Now, what I would like to do for a UI would be, once you've written a query, and I really I've seen some of the query languages that they use. That's fine, but learning SQL is a good skill. It's not that hard, especially to write some very basic queries. Really easy to provide examples of almost anything you'd want, as far as these are pretty much straight selects with where statements. And you've got most of the data that you need. And then we could write some functions. So we could write some special functions which say, show me this type of anomalous data, or data that's been anomalous within the last 24 hours. And, things like that or views. You could just use views, and you could, quickly take a million or a billion records and get it down to a far more manageable number. And then you can kind of, again, filter. You can look at that and sort by things and filter this data set down to what you need to look at. And then you could generate the dashboard from that. So that's what I'd like to be able to do, is to dynamically generate a dashboard based off of a query. And then you could save that. You could do things, this is a lot easier than building the dashboards. So we would just default to basically line type graphs. And I think that's the way to go. So this is a long kind of rant, but man, do I wish there was an interface that was pretty much that simple. I feel like I could monitor a lot of stuff. And this is just one component. I want to look at how easy it is to send data to this, how easy it is to share the data. I'd like to make it possible that within the application, I can share a group, get a unique key for a group and allow somebody else to get access to that so that they can write their own monitors and do things like that. So you could potentially, in consulting, you could use it to monitor other people's systems. They could send the data to you, or you could pull the data, and you don't even need to run this like right now it's running every 5 minutes. I see, as systems are able to scale and collect more data, it seems like, not only do they want billions of data points capable of being monitored, but they want like really high sample rates. Again, I'd rather have something to adjust, this, you could dynamically change the sample rate to something higher if you needed to, but in a lot of cases, like running something once an hour, pulling this data once an hour is plenty, and you will be able to see if there's an issue, and if there's an issue, then you can dynamically have that start to pull at a more frequent interval. Okay, so Statzilla, mostly I just wanted to kind of get back into working with Oracle Apex because I've taken some months off due to my current role, and got a little bit of slowness this week, and so I was able to kind of play around with this a little bit. All right, well, hope you enjoyed that, and look forward to more videos in the future. Thanks.